No, you can see. So basically, I'm in the back room of this shop, and here I am, and it's very, very camp. But I had agreed only the night before. I'm not a great fan of many things to do with Talk TV, particularly because Piers Morgan works on it. So I'm very careful about what I would talk to on that channel. But a guy called Peter Cardwell, who has his own show on a Saturday, who is the political editor, had apparently the week before, during a broadcast live, had said, listen, guys, you may notice I'm a little bit subdued today, and I'm having issues with my mental health. I'm continuing on, and I'm sure that if I look after myself this weekend, I might feel better by Monday. But I just felt that as we are constantly telling people that it's good to talk, I'm opening up myself today. And I thought that was a really good thing to do, because I've done that before. You know, I've been talking out about my mental health issues since I had metThe 33 years ago, when I was the only person in this country talking on the telly about it. And we only had 4 channels then. And so I am very keen to support people who share their mental health journey when, you know, to show, listen, I'm still working and I'm still functioning and I'm still doing my job, but I'm struggling. So I agreed to talk to him. So we were late, so we had to rush into the back shop. I actually come to you live from the back of a shop called Cinder's Dress Shop in Liverpool.
So these people
this morning to go to a function, and they very kindly.
These people who were in the shop getting all their daughters' prom dresses saw this mad bint off the telly run and grab a ring light and run into the back shop and do a live interview from the back of the shop. But I just thought that if I'm watching or listening to something, that's like a little snippet into somebody's world that you quite enjoy.
That's the point of that. Let's back up. So you've gone in. You've gone in there.
Yeah.
But we had already beforehand. This is the whole point of looking at. You know, you doing a podcast is about your life. Your life, which is full of fun, crazy, intelligence, all those things that I love about you. And that's what we were talking about when we were with metThe in New York, about looking at the essence of what you're about as a person, unedited, your own time, the way you want to talk, what you want to talk about. And that's why when you went there, like I said to you beforehand, let's just take your phone and switch on the video or switch on the voice recorder and record what's going on.
I get it.
Because I think it's about cutting into your life.
No, I know. I get it.
No one sees that.
The thing is, DK, and DK, guys, is the studio manager of Lincoln's studio. And our friend, obviously.
He directs everything that happens. In my studio. I paint it and he directs the way the sales are done, marketing's done, all those things are done.
Yeah.
But as well as that, we've done our own podcast. But one of the things we've always been talking about
is me doing one.
Is you doing one.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I have guested on 100 podcasts that people have done. Some have meant something to me. Some have purely been because a friend of mine, you know, usually somebody in the industry obviously has asked me to go on it. But what I found is that, so nowadays podcasts are very powerful. I'm not a great podcast listener to. Lincoln is, and Matthew are prolific podcast listeners too. I'm usually too busy in my downtime watching The Real Housewives of anywhere in the entire world. What are you whispering about?
I've got a lot of rustle from Lincoln's lovely puffer jacket on the microphones.
Okay.
And if anyone's going to know anything about me,
they'll know that you can't bear Russell.
I can't bear Russell.
Poor Russell. I tell my kids what I'm doing and they go, oh, great, Mum, whatever. But metThe has always said to me, Mum, the one thing that I don't understand why you don't do is a podcast. I think it's because
And why has he said that to you?
Because he just thinks that it's quite surprising actually, because, you know, he's tried to shut me down quite a few times about things that I say. I can be a bit sort of gobby, and we try not to merge our careers, you know, because he's got a completely different demographic to me. But he just thinks that I have quite a big voice and quite a loud voice and I should use it. But I've always said, the trouble is, Matthew and Lincoln, you know, there are so many mental health podcasts. I speak out on Instagram about it. I get a very fantastic opportunity whenever it's relevant to talk about it on television. And Matty said, yeah, but you don't have to make it about anything.
No.
And him and Lincoln were talking about these podcasts that they listen to. And Matthew listened to one called Come Town, which is now called The Adam Friedman Show. We met the guys at Madison Square Garden when we went to see Matty. I said, oh my God, are you the guys from Come Town? They went, what? You know we're the guys from Come Town? And Mrs. Lincoln, we're fascinated by you and your name. Because
it was crazy. But
Matt said
we'd heard about them. We'd heard about their podcast through Matt.
Yep.
Every time Denise has ever mentioned about podcasts, that's where Matt.
He said, "Mum, the guys that I listen to, their podcast is not about anything. It's just about them talking. Whether they're going to the shops, whether something global has happened, whether it's something that's happened personally to them. They're just two guys." Sometimes talking shit, sometimes talking politics, sometimes talking about the price of a tin of New York beans, and it's just really about that. And I think that appeals to me more. Also, the fact that the other thing that I did worry about is that I was under this impression that you sort of had to go into a studio every Friday and put your podcast out. And because I've got older DK, I don't like the idea of being tied down as much.
No.
I like the idea of being able to do stuff which then can go out willy-nilly whenever. Because I love working, but I also love not working. And also something that if we were abroad on a more holiday type of thing, if something happened or just if we were having a particular conversation, because I think what happens is, I sometimes think me waffling on about things isn't interesting, but to some people it is. And my social media is evidence of that. I'm very Marmite. Some people love me and they'd listen to me talking about anything. Some people, more on the Twitter world, can't stand me. That's absolutely fine. I'm old and ugly enough to be able to deal with it all. And this has been proven through my recent ranting about Matt Hancock in the jungle. I can't move on from it. And these people who are being sucked in by this pretend guy who's been given a platform, but I'm just so furious from what we went through during COVID. Not COVID, not the essential restrictions, not the taking care. It was the COVID theatre. And when we look back on that time and see a solo person being arrested on a fucking beach at Whitley Bay by sitting on their own on the seafront, and within 3 days we were controlled in that way, I can't move on. And Matt Hancock, okay, he's not solely to blame for it, but he was front and centre of it. So the point I want to make is, with the Twitterati, is that because I openly admitted to infidelity during my previous marriage. There were infidelities in that marriage, and I've admitted to it. I always say there's no excuses, there are sometimes reasons. But nevertheless, Matt Hancock having an affair is, I can't tell you how inconsequential that is to me. It is of zero interest to me who he shags. The least we think about it, the better, in my opinion. But the point that people are saying to me is, well, you're a hypocrite. How dare you? Those who live in glass houses and all of that kind of stuff. And it's like, the point I'm making is not that he had an affair, that he has flippantly on that show said, well, I fell in love. While he fell in love, we were being barred by seeing people that we had loved all of our lives because of his restrictions. And even though we had vaccines, even though we had testing, I broke the law to drive home to see my dad. Now, my dad wasn't sick then, but he was lonely and he was vulnerable because he couldn't live the social life that he wanted to live.
That's why I was angry.
And Newcastle was kept in tier 4. Remember those tiers for fears that were had? Newcastle was kept in tier 4 for many, many more weeks than when other tiers had been allowed to resume normal service to a point. So my dad, I could see his mental health decline for the first time in his 84 years.
Yep.
And so I drove home to see him. And as it turned out, that was the last Christmas that I spent with my dad because I lost him in 2021. I'm not the only person who lost someone during COVID. I lost my dad. A lot of it was because COVID, not with COVID. And I didn't lose him because of COVID, but a lot of his illness was spent alone because of the restrictions applied, some of them nonsensical. And when you've been in the hospital as much as I was and talked to the nurses on the shop floor who said to me, it's not COVID that's doing a lot of the damage, it's COVID protocol that's doing a lot of the damage, right? And when you've had an 84-year-old dad who wants you to hold his hand in the ambulance and you are told that you can't, with these ambulance drivers nearly crying because they want you to and they know it's absolute fucking bollocks that you can't go with him. But because they'll get sacked, you know, I'm still reeling from that. And how these people who are now thinking he's the greatest thing since sliced bread because 11 stars, how they have moved on so quickly. You know, it's a brilliant PR exercise. And I'm absolutely fuming about it.
I can't believe it. I can't believe it. And I told you, I've spoken to a few people that have said, actually, I really like him. And that, you know, straight out just to me. And they know I'm married to you. This is the other thing. So go back, to forget about Hancock for a sec. So to go back, to look at the structure of what.
And the look on Denise's face, that's not going to be an easy thing to do.
No, I get that. But I'm just.
I mean, I do get pissed off that he's taken up so much of my time as well, you know, living rent free in my head. I'm so angry, but sorry, Link, what?
No, but this is what I'm talking about. What you're talking about now, right, is one part of your life. And when you go out to Cinderella's and try on a dress, or when you go down to London and you go and you maybe see a friend, or even if you're just in London at the flat, just going over something you've been through in that day, that's what your podcast is about. Because I want to know things about certain people that I'm interested in that I'm never going to know because what they do is sort of private. You know, I want to know what they're doing in their private time.
And I don't want people to know all my private business.
No, but you don't need to, and that's why. I mean, that's why I said to DK, we want to be looking at taking just parts, but more of the essence of Denise Welch. And this is what's really important because I see it all the time. Is
that a title? The essence of Denise Welch?
Well, I think
there'd be a few green sick emojis on Twitter if we called it that.
Listen, my opinion, I just think it's unedited because the whole point is you haven't got a producer in your ear. Right, we're here and we're talking this through. This is what's really interesting.
Well, we didn't know we were going to talk it through. So I've come here today to actually do a video with DK, who has very kindly produced the video for the Gem Appeal, which is the charity that I talk about, that many of you will know. It's a charity that raises money for research and treatment for genetic conditions. I've been a patron for 24 years. I have an annual ball, which is coming up this Saturday. So I came here to sort of do some recording with DK, and we started talking about the podcast, and here we are. It's evolved into, should we do a podcast?
Yeah, but our initial talks were, which I said to you the other morning, I said, look, just shove on your audio. You haven't got to film anything. You could do a bit of filming, because I think the thing is as well, it's like that, it's a bit like, it's that juxtaposition as well of audio and
hang
film.
on a minute.
You know, I mean, like, you know, even the phone
The
going off.
Groucho Club. Why is the Grouch? Hang on a minute. Why is the Groucho Club ringing me? Have I not paid my money? Hang on. Hello? It is Denise, yes.
This is what I mean.
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Yes, how can I help? Yes, it's
You don't want to give this on
No,
the
you don't want to give this out.
Tell the producer to cut this bit.
Is it possible for me to ring you back, because I'm actually in the middle of recording something? Okay, no worries. And yeah, I don't want to say I don't want to give my email away. But I'll definitely be around. I'll be around later. Okie dokie. All right then. Bye.
But this is what.
Oh my God! I just nearly gave my email around.
Yeah, I know you did. But this is what it is. This is what I think. This is what I think that is the unseen.
You're going to get
Denise.
people going, oh my God,
Right.
the Groucho Club, just so that we all know that she's a member of the Groucho Club.
But the thing is that these are all
Scheduled
things.
that call.
Yeah, I scheduled the call.
These are all things that I just think are an insight. You look, you know, it's just you're managing to look from behind the curtain. You're in the front room looking
Well, listen, it's
hearing
always
it
like
fly on the wall.
It's always
You know,
like
that
I
sort of
say
thing.
with reality television. And I remember years ago, before we had so much reality television, there was a sort of a Peter Andre reality show. And I remember tuning into it. And there was lots of footage of Peter on the red carpet and Peter going to this do and going to that do. And they were not interesting. The bit that was interesting, that you're drawn into, is Peter Andre making a cup of tea in the kitchen.
Yeah, that's right.
And you are
We've talked
fascinated by the minutiae of nothingness.
Well, it's Denise's reality.
And
This
I
is
am,
what it is.
and I am,
That's
you know
what it
me,
is.
I'm
You were talking
fascinated
about that
by...
with Unbreakable, weren't you, when you went in and put your bags down?
Oh, I mean, look at Unbreakable, right? All
Unbreakable
the
is the
times-
BBC show that we won, I hasten to add.
Yeah, so, yeah, it's on iPlayer. You know, and these are the things. Well, there were lots of things going on behind the scenes, which actually were one of the reasons we did win it. Because if we were recording something like this, even if we put it out after the show, right, the whole point being is that you even trying to, I mean, you laying on the bed that time reading the magazines, and I'm basically wandering around the room with Stephen Bailey, looking out the window, making literally a ring in the carpet, looking at the cranes, going, I'm going to have to jump
Because
off
they
the
were so
bungee.
terrified of the
terrified,
bungee.
right?
And also, the thing is about this
So
house
that wasn't shot. That wasn't.
No,
filmed.
No.
The
But we
best.
were filming in a stately home, DK, called Ugbrook House in Devon. And it was, it was your sort of, you're not so flashed out and manner type of thing. And we were in a room that it was a 4-poster bed. And funnily enough, 2 weeks before we got this show, we'd been walking around Limehouse, is it, with your
Lime
mother?
Park.
Yeah, we had
Lime Park, and
yeah.
looking at all these 4-poster beds
Yeah.
and being fascinated by them. And suddenly there we were sleeping in one. And because our room...
How was the snoring?
Because the
Horrifying.
snoring wasn't good. It wasn't
Big
good.
room, though,
But he
so
had,
don't
no,
know
he
who's
had no
claiming who
choice.
there,
All the
but-
rooms were taken. And no, but the thing is that we discovered on one of there was all these old historical paintings of previous Ugbrook House dwellers around. And we noticed on one of them that it said Mabel somebody, nay Townley. But Townley was spelt in the old-fashioned way of Towneley. And we thought, I wonder if that's, maybe some distant relative, whatever. But anyway, in the room, everybody at night would come into our bedroom. And the place where the
not only
house
the
was
bedroom, but
was
actually
called
into the bed.
Chudley. And they used to knock on the door and go, may we sit by the bedside of Lady Townley of Chudley? And they all used to come in, didn't they, and sit
the
around
first I've heard of
and
it.
gossip
Yeah.
around
That's what I mean.
the bedside of Lady Townley. And we always used to say, because it wasn't a reality show like that, but there was things that happened and talks that happened that we thought, oh my God, that would have been brilliant television.
Yeah, but I mean, this is the thing, picking even up the audio of what we were talking about in the lead up to some of these, I mean, there was, it's got the lakes, you got the water, you got the height because you got the bungee, we didn't know whether we were going to be going like potholing when we went down to the
That was what I was
seaside.
more
That's what
terrified of.
I was terrified about it. But I just think that this is where it comes down to the whole thing of, yes, you're in the show, but what is going on in the show? What's happening at the production of the show? And it doesn't mean we've got to put these sort of things out, when the show is being produced. But after that, it's a bit like looking back on it. So if we'd had some, I could have gone, put that bit on when I was in the room saying about I don't want to do the bungee.
The thing is with it,
let's cut to that.
I don't want, I'd love all of my friends to at some point be on my podcast, but not so much in an interview way. I mean, you've got, my friend Jenny Powell has got Hot Mess Mums. You've got Kate Thornton, who's got White Wine Question Time.
Yeah.
Those are brilliant podcasts. Therefore, it's like, that's why I think you've got Fern Cotton, who's got the Happy Place podcast. It's kind of like I've felt there is so many done brilliantly on the market. Where do I fit in? And that's why I think a more kind of generic, just chatting.
Unstructured.
But I also don't want my friends to go, oh my God, we're not going round to Den's because she'll get a microphone out.
No, but that's right. But it's moments that you can take and you want to take. There's lots of things that you talk about with your friends that you wouldn't want to put on the podcast. But there might be parts of your chats and your days out and stuff like that you could say, actually, you know what? When I popped over to Southport, this is what I was talking about. Listen to this, guys. It's just you in the car.
I suppose
Because I don't think.
the
One of
thing
the
is
things.
because-
Let me just say this. I think as well that audio quality, right? I've been listening to a few quite sort of contemporary, sort of arty type, even like Radio 4. Just when you hear the door clunk and all these sorts of things, and you hit the engine starting, and the audio's not great. I love that. Because it gives that vibe, it gives an essence of you in the car.
Yeah, I think that's
you're
what makes
sort of
it
with
more.
them. You're on the journey.
You don't have to be sat round with all proper mics and all equipment.
No, you don't.
And I think that there will be some times when, because I'm older, I'm 64 now. When I'm 64, I was always a people pleaser. Being married to you for 10 years nearly has made me much less of a people pleaser. We always say, DK, that we've sort of yin and yanged each other, that Lincoln's made me tougher in some ways, and I've found a sensitivity gene that may have been somewhat lacking, over the years. So there's a real yin and yang aspect goes on about it. So the thing is, I've just got to
play a lot nicer with people now.
And you're a lot nicer with you. Play with
play
yes,
well.
Lincoln plays well with others very often. But the thing is, I've got to be confident enough that whatever's happened in my week or month or fortnight or day or whatever happens, that I just put it out, and people will either enjoy it and find it interesting, or they won't.
Yeah,
because there are some weeks that I will have a really full week of lots and lots of stuff. And there will be other weeks where you and I have a chill and we do nothing but try and find real life crime on the television.
Absolutely. And the thing is with it as well is it's like I was saying to you yesterday about we went to go and see that great Gary Barlow show.
Oh my God, DK. We went to see Gary Barlow's show.
That's for another podcast, I think, because one of the reasons I'm going to say
I'm going to do a whole podcast on Gary Barlow.
Well, no, but I think we could go into like those sort of entertainment aspects that we go to and we enjoy, like live theatre. When we went to the theatre in New York as well. We might put a little photograph of these things out on Instagram and say we went there, but it's
because timing of this is that we've just come back from seeing Matty at Madison Square Garden, and that was, as a mom and as a stepdad, that was really quite one of the most incredible things ever.
On another level. But these things, what we do, and this is why this first podcast is interesting for me, because as you're talking, I'm thinking of all the things that we've done this bizarre show, Unbreakable, but it's a bit like what has brought us to this point where we already know we're unbreakable. It's like, when I was driving, remember when we first met, I was driving for you, right? I was doing a bit of PR bits and bobs and I was driving.
I loved that time.
And do you remember that time when, I
was doing Steel Magnolias, the tour.
We're properly getting to know each other and stuff. And it is that, because it takes a long time to get to know somebody. And I remember you saying to me, just say over there. Remember that? And just all these things.
This is
things,
the accent thing, DK,
right? Because remember you said that the 33,000, and I want to say 33,000.
So
right?
I've always been fascinated, as an actor, I suppose, as an actress by dialect. So Lincoln was between jobs. I mean, let's be honest, you'd left Stringfellows, hadn't you?
Yeah, 2012.
We were both. Lincoln had just become sober. I was still drinking a bit, thinking that I didn't have so much of a problem, but I was doing a national tour of Steel Magnolias
I was driving
with a stellar cast, and I wanted Lincoln with me, and he would drive me, and we would be driving down the motorway, and I've always been fascinated by this. So you've got people with a London accent like Lincoln, although it happens in Manchester as well. So Lincoln's natural accent would be to say 33,000, okay?
Which is right. Yeah.
So I used to try and get him. He was going to be doing some presentations for some idea you had.
Yeah.
So although I love accents and I love the way Lincoln talks, Lincoln was very keen to try and speak more proper. So we were trying to take the fuzz out and make them thuzz. So I gave him a quote which was, "My mother and father left me £33,000. Right, say it.
Well, I'll say it as I do nowadays.
Right. Go on then.
My mother and father left me.
You don't talk like that.
He does say mother and father.
I do say my mother and father. Well,
he doesn't say
mum and dad. I'd say
mum and dad.
Because there's the TH. No, I don't talk like that. You're right, mum and dad. But what I'm saying is, if you look at the TH in mother and father, I don't say it like mother and father.
He doesn't say TH.
I say. So if I was going to say that, I'd say mother and father. Right?
Yeah.
And that's using an F.
Say 33. Say
right?
33.
33.
He says 33. So does Lewis, my stepson, say 33. But the point I'm making is this. That's fine. That's their accent. I love it. But I said, say over there. Say over there.
Over there.
So the people who say 33,000 say over there.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't they go over there? So they can form the TH when they say, I'll give it to, go over there. But yet they would go, my 33,000 is over there.
Different
which to
dialect.
me is...
It's just it's dialect, isn't it?
It's dialect. It's just weird to me. But the thing is, when we were... So anyway, we were having a laugh with Lewis, weren't we?
Yeah. And
Lewis got so confused about it. He started saying things like, well, I'm looking forward to going to Florida. Do you remember getting really mixed up with it all?
Where was Lewis brought up?
In Hertfordshire. In Hertfordshire.
So he's halfway between the sort of real London.
If you're on the phone to Lewis or on the phone to me, you wouldn't really know the difference.
You can't now tell the difference.
It's crazy. But that was just an example. That's just an example of the things that people don't know, and I mean, some people might be. I mean, even when you were talking to me about it, some people might be offended by that. I wasn't, but it's just a funny thing.
Yeah, but mine wasn't. I wasn't
a funny thing.
I wasn't a funny thing. I wasn't being critical of your accent.
No, I know.
I love your accent, but you were.
It was the first time I've ever thought about it.
But also because you were suddenly with an actress as well, you were maybe at the time you thought that if you were going to be presenting. It was kind of a party planning thing you were talking about, wasn't it, really?
That's what I was doing at the time, as well.
You were talking about presenting, and you were talking about presenting maybe to people who were international, and therefore you thought that you should moderate your accent. Yeah, that's where it came from. It didn't come from me being critical of it, because I wouldn't want you to talk any other sort of way. But yeah, I mean, that's
the thing about...
was the foundation of our relationship it gave us.
Bringing in certain aspects of us that no one knows... And it's just, they're either interested or they're not. And then we basically find our feet with this. And that's where I always think that you could, if you looked at it, sometimes when I'm listening to radio, it's not even really the subjects I'm listening to. It's the feeling, like when I'm in the car and I'm listening to something, it takes me to another place. And I just enjoy it. I enjoy being around people when I don't need to actually talk to them myself.
Yeah. And what Matty said...
I like being the fly on the wall. I like that.
And what Matty said, DK, about the type of podcasts that he listens to, he says, I don't have to sit down and feel I'm putting it on.
No.
It's just on.
It's just on.
It's
not
just...
like welcome
and he
to...
Said,
don't need any of that.
Yeah, and he also said that it's been like company to him. Because, you're touring internationally and everything, and sometimes... You're alone, you feel a bit lonely.
It's the first thing I do when my family's away, or if I'm away from my family, is podcasts, because they're really familiar, aren't they? They all come around the same ones again and again, and you get used to it.
And I think that's why I should definitely listen to more. If I didn't have this Hey You app on my phone that had all my reality television on, I would probably listen to more podcasts. But then again, if I did a podcast, I would also be talking. Can I just make this point? It's like there are podcasts in America who focus exclusively on Bravo television, right? It's my favorite channel in the United States because it's got all the reality on it, right? And so there are podcasts talking about it. Now, if I did a podcast, right, I would sometimes want to talk about what's happened in the latest episode of The Real Housewives of Orange County.
No, but you're doing a podcast.
No, all right. I'm doing a podcast now. But what I'm saying is,
that's the thing.
I wouldn't want to do a podcast. I'm trying to talk about this in my words by saying that if I was talking about The Real Housewives of Orange County, I wouldn't be specifically doing a podcast about that. No. So therefore, there would be people out there who would momentarily feel alienated because they don't know who Shannon is from The Real Housewives of Orange County, but I've just got to do me. So I would just be talking about how what Shannon has done or what Tamara has done in that particular episode has affected me or annoyed me or cheered me. And if people can relate to that, that's fine.
It's not just people who relate to it, though. People get hugely influenced by podcasts. If they follow you, if they like you and want to know what you're about, if that's something you like, it may well be that they like that as well.
I mean, exactly. Well.
I get loads of my influences from podcasts.
No one. It's all to do with. No one wants to miss out. It's all that FOMO, right? It's that's the no one wants to miss out. So if you have a fan, okay, and you can give them something, okay, that they're not going to see from you, from any of the other shows that you do, okay, that to them is great. And what can happen is with that is there's an honesty about it as well. Because like I said, there's no one telling you in your ear what you can and can't say. Because one of the things...
I've got to be careful though, Lincoln, because this is going out in the world, and Denise Unfiltered is sometimes, I'd have to be careful.
No, but you know what? I don't. Do you know what, then? Do you know what? I said this to you yesterday. Anytime I've ever spoken to you for your advice on anything, okay, or if I've got something, a niggle in my mind, I'm thinking about something. If I ask you, I know whatever comes out of your mouth, right? It's thought through, and it means something, and there's a reason you're saying it. You are not one of these people that are just going to talk about something for the sake of it. You speak about something because you're passionate about it. You have an intelligence around it, and it needs to be heard. It needs to be heard.
Well, yeah, but it doesn't. Yeah, but me talking about the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills doesn't need to be heard.
What
it's just something that I would like to talk about.
But you like talking about it. But that's good. But that's what it's about. And that's why when someone sits down in their room and they go, "Oh, what's Denise been up to?" And this is based around you. I mean, I know we're talking about this, and I've put a lot into this. But the reason I put a lot into this episode is because we've been talking about it, and I just
we didn't even know we were doing. This is the most organic episode of anything I've ever done in my life. We didn't even know we were going to do it.
But that's the great thing about it.
And the thing is, on Loose Women, DK, sometimes the horrors on Twitter, they have what's called Denise Welch bingo. Okay, which is mental illness, Lincoln, alcohol, and my dad dying. And I've had to now play into that. So sometimes I will sneakily pick up my phone. They're always telling me off for taking my phone on set. But I will sometimes get such pleasure, and I will look at what these troll people are saying, and I'll look at the Denise Welch bingo, and I'll go to the girls' Full House by the end of part one.
Yes.
But I want people to know, you see, the thing is as well, where people misconstrue it is like they say, you're always talking about yourself. It's like, that's what the show is about. It's called Loose Women, for a reason. It is an anecdotal and opinion-led show. Without the anecdotes, it would be the same as many other shows. Do you know what I mean? That's what the fans tune in for. I do talk about those things on the Denise Welch bingo because they're my life. My life is formed now by my sobriety. My future is now formed because I no longer have my dad. Lincoln, unfortunately, for those people who say I say Lincoln more than the Lincoln Tourist Board, is that my husband is called Lincoln. If they would like me to call him John, I would be happy to do so. But I don't know how to talk about my life without talking about Lincoln. You wouldn't believe what people say. And they go, Lincoln, tick, woohoo, and put like woohoo signs and everything out. Because obviously everything I do on a daily basis is, often with Lincoln. It's crazy. The other thing was, I think the title of podcasts is so important.
Yes, it is.
And my favourite title of anything ever was that Peter Kay thing that he did years ago. And obviously he sat there and thought, no matter what I call this comedy, people will say, hey, did you hear that Peter Kay thing last night?
Yes.
And I just think that's a brilliant title.
Yeah, good title.
So I'd love if he hadn't done that to call it that Denise Welch thing. Did you hear that Denise Welch thing, or that Denise Welch podcast or something? DK, you had an idea, which was the Real Denise Welch.
Real Denise Welch, yeah.
And that's also my Twitter handle. So that's also interesting. I just don't know whether that sounds a bit grown up to me. I don't know the Real Denise. The Real Denise Welch.
Well, I'm very close to this whole thing because obviously we live together, and we did come up with a title, which I know DK is going to cringe if I mention it. But the point being is that there's lots of things around you that
the title was Denise Welch's Juicy Crack. Now, DK's cringing at the title.
Well, is this a title that needs explaining, or?
Yes, DK, because you are thinking of it in one way. But but basically, where I come from in Newcastle, we call it having a good crack. Cracking on. I know the Irish they talk about their crack with C-R-A-I-C. Ours in Newcastle is just how we, C-R-A-C-K. Did you have a crack? What crack was there last night? And obviously, sometimes people consider my gossip to be quite juicy. And that's where the title came from. What connotations you put on it, David Klein, is completely up to you. But Denise Welch's Juicy Crack was basically about there may be some snippets of juicy gossip coming into this. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, are we allowed to say that anymore? I don't know. Everybody who might be listening, if there's one or 1,000,
I was always
more,
thinking,
should we go with Denise Welch's Juicy Crack?
Before we move away from the Juicy Crack, I was thinking to myself, what would be interesting is when you email someone and saying, do you fancy coming on Denise's Juicy Crack? you email a celebrity.
DK.
Oh yeah, do you fancy it? It's like, I don't know.
DK's face is a
Don't know.
picture.
Why did Rob Beckett come into my mind then? I don't know why, but anyway, there you go.
Yeah, I love Rob Beckett's podcast, Parenting Hell. That was interesting, you know. I talked about doing lots of friends. I spoke earlier, I think I did anyway. I can't remember if that was before we were chatting on mic or not, but about how many podcasts I've done of my friends' podcast over the years. And what happens now is the press, looking for a story, will devour podcasts and pick up. A newspaper last week, well, it was The Sun actually, did a double-page article on me as if I had done an exclusive interview. It was actually taken from Rob Beckett and Josh Widdicombe's Parenting Hell podcast. But they can do that to make it look like an exclusive. So I decided then
Did that article come out before or
after the podcast. And within the copy, they did mention the podcast, but it still was a double-page spread with a photo that I hadn't authorized on there, where they'd taken the background out.
That was the copy online, though. It wasn't
No, it was in the paper.
No, I know it was in the paper, but did they mention the podcast in the paper? I don't think they did.
I think they had to. We couldn't get a copy because it was the day after. But nevertheless, to anybody else,
sent us a look at it the day after.
To anybody else who picked up the Sun newspaper, it looked like I had done an exclusive interview. The content in that I would never have done with a newspaper.
Right.
I chose to speak openly on the Parenting Hell podcast. Rob Beckett presented Unbreakable, and as a result of that, asked me to do his podcast, which he admitted he probably wouldn't have had I not done Unbreakable. But what was interesting was that I got an incredible response from that podcast, because I always assume that because I have talked so openly about my mental health journey, about the fact that it started when I had Matty with postnatal depression in 1989, that everybody who was remotely interested in my story had heard it. But of course, that's only people who are within my demographic of people who follow me on Instagram, social media, have watched my TV shows and ultimately listen and watch Loose Women. But of course, with Parenting Hell, with sort of, comedians like Rob and Josh, it was listened to by a whole different group of people who didn't know, didn't really know what I was about. And I had a fantastic response to it. And it was also helped by Rob and Josh's surprise by who I was. Rob openly said, I just thought she was the gobby bird off Loose Women. And to many people I am and will remain so. But he saw a different side to me. And it was really interesting.
See, I've only ever known this side to you.
You've ever,
I don't watch any of those things, so I only know the real
you only
Denise
know
Welch.
this side. But it would be interesting.
Well, that's the thing about podcasts, very interesting, because every podcast has its own audience, and they can be very distinct audience from the next podcast.
Yeah.
When I share, my friends and I, we had dinner or whatever, we meet up, we kind of trade podcasts. Like, what are you listening to at the moment? What's on your playlist?
What is your favourite, would you say, at the minute?
Off menu.
Who?
It's got to be off menu.
Off menu? Is that a food one?
It is loosely food, comedian Ed Gamble and James Acaster. You probably come across them. Yeah. It's one of the biggest, as far as I know, one of the biggest podcasts around at the moment.
Have you listened to it, Link?
I have a bit, yeah.
I talk to Lincoln about it quite often.
Yeah.
Very, very, very.
Is it a weekly one? Do they do a weekly one?
It is weekly, and it's very, very formula based. But they
What's
talk
the formula?
around it. It's basically your dream meal. So if celebrities come on, or people, comedians
like I always say to people, what would be your last supper?
Yeah, they kind of differentiate it from that. It's not necessarily what your last.
Well, I always
one
think
is.
If you were going to be murdered, you probably wouldn't be that hungry.
There's partly that, but it's more like anything you can dream of. So it might be something from your past, or it might be the best thing you've ever had at a certain restaurant anywhere in the world, or something your grandmother made, or whatever.
But you see, I think that's, although I love the looseness of this, that's what I suppose I've panicked about doing a podcast, that when you say that's very formulaic and people know that they're going to go on and they talk about, meal memories or current things, and then it grows from that. I think that having that structure maybe helps, but Lincoln thinks otherwise.
There's a whole spectrum of them, though.
Yeah, there is, and there's bullet points. I think expanding on a subject, right? For instance, it's like. The thing is with all of the things that go on in your life, Den, is that you are great at expanding on that moment. So if I said to you, what about that happened last week? What about this? And it just literally, it could be one word. You could drive that to be very entertaining for people, because you do, and I see you do it around the house. You do it when the girls come around for nibbles and nails. All those things that people don't see. But it's like for instance, let me give you an example of this, right? Like last night, right, I'm having some reflexology on my foot, right? So Helen shows up, lovely friend of ours, comes around doing my reflexology. She's brilliant. Now, she walks in and says, oh, I might pop in and say hello to Den. Now, Den's in the kitchen. This is true. This is a fact, right? And I said, yeah, no worries. I'll go and get some towels and bits and bobs, set up the bed. So I take the bed upstairs for her and bits and bobs. She goes in, and next minute I hear a roaring laughter from Helen. Okay, I don't think I've really heard her laugh before, but she walks in, and do you want to explain what she walked into, Den?
Right. Well, although Lincoln calls himself the influencer, and anybody who has had the joy of looking at my Instagram over the last couple of years will have seen that Lincoln sees himself as an influencer and often influences wearing my swimming costumes. I actually do earn money by influencing in the real sense of the word, because the more I can do to earn money from my house without leaving it, the better for me. So Helen walked into the kitchen and I was sat with a ring light holding a sex toy.
I'm looking at DK now.
Yeah, because I was asked by a leading online retailer of sex toys to advertise their latest one, which is basically lovehoney.com. And they asked me to advertise there. It's called the Womanizer OG, DK. And it is based on, what did I have to say?
I can't believe Den's
listen. No. What did I have to say?
My Christmas
it's using not just vibrations, it's using airwaves as well. But the MO for it, for me advertising it, was to just hold it and advertise it as if I was talking about a new telephone or a thing of butter. At one point, Louis kept saying to me, Mum, when can I come in the kitchen? What is it that you're doing that I can't come in? And eventually I said, I'm advertising a sex toy. And he said, I'm just about to go to the edge and think about driving my car over it.
But he's called actually. Well, to be fair, he come back and said, Mum, you do what you like.
I said, do you really not want me to do this? He said, Mum, please do what you like.
Anyway, there's an example. But it's, I don't know what I'd hold up in the air.
Yeah, but I can't be constantly have a camera in my kitchen in case I'm doing a sex toy advert and my friend walks in.
No, that's right. But I don't even think...
Sounds like it was an interesting foot massage that followed that, though.
Well...
It was, yeah. It was... It's one of those things where...
Well, at least Helen knows what she's getting for Christmas.
All of the things that I'm bringing up in this, where I'm just sitting here just looking and thinking about our life and our life at home and stuff, and then the stuff you're doing remotely and you're out and about, I just think that there's stuff there that can be brought in, and then we'll know. Put it all together and basically say, I
think it'll be interesting if this chat about whether I should do a podcast does go out. I think it would be interesting to get feedback from people. I think it would be interesting that we've got that Denise Welch podcast. We've got the real Denise Welch. We've got Denise Welch's Juicy Crack.
My favourite.
Your favourite. And see what people think. I mean, do you think this will go out, DK? Do you think this is go outable?
Certainly this is podcastable, but when we're making a podcast, traditionally we would get a few episodes in the can so that we'd have some progression.
Yeah.
People could get used to it. Because there's no podcast that I know of that was off and running from day one. People need to get hold of it. They need to sit with it. They need to listen to a few.
Yes.
You can't make a decision on a podcast from one.
No, you're right. But I think there's elements of.
But I'm very comfortable doing this with us three.
Yeah.
That to think that I think what it is I've worked for 40 odd years, DK. Right. I've got to a point now in my career where, like I said before, I love to work, but I love not to work. I am lucky that I don't have to take any single job that comes in. I love being with Lincoln. I love being at home or being on holiday, with each other. And so I like to do things that aren't going to take me loads and loads and loads of planning and loads and loads and loads of work.
Yeah.
So if it can be the type of thing whereby
if I have somebody that I want to invite either to here or wherever we're chatting, they can, but that I don't have this massive production where I have to think of getting a guest and going through their agent and going through their manager and da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da. That wouldn't appeal to me because
you're right. And you know,
it's something I'm enjoying, just sitting and chewing the fat.
And do you know what we've done today? And this is the craziest thing about it. And Den just mentioned it then. 40 years in the business, right? 40 years in the business. And I think that what I'm interested in, if I was to think of anyone, say, outside of this that I'm intrigued by or interested in, do you know what I'd like to know? I'd like to know something about what you're doing now. I'd like to know how you got to where you are. What happened in the past? Tell me something that excited you. Tell me something that hurt you. Tell me something that you would like to share. Okay? And what do you want in the future? And that's what I want to know. I'd like to know what's happening today or around today. How did you get to where you are? Bring up one thing. And where are you going in the future? And this is what it is. And I think,
but the thing about where I'm going in the future is not, I think I was talking to Kate. Kate
you are always talking about those.
No, I know, but what I'm saying is that I feel, and I'm 14 years older than Kate. She's the same as you. She's coming up 50. But I feel that I'm very lucky, and I feel very honoured that I am still considered relevant within this business. It's fucking hard to be a 64-year-old woman and remain relevant in this business. You know, there's a lot of the swan gliding on the surface, but the legs flapping away underneath. But I no longer have a surging ambition. I want to work, but I don't have anything to prove anymore. Mm-hmm. You know, some people that know me don't know that I'm a fucking good actress. And I am. That's my main job. It's the one thing I'll say I'm really good at. But a lot of people know me more from presenting, or that gobby bird off the telly, or the one who's quite controversial on Twitter. That's okay. I may do a play next year. I've got a meeting tomorrow about it. I might do a play. That's kind of like for me, for my fulfillment. Yeah. But what I don't feel is the need. Somebody said to me, yeah, you should do a play and remind people how good you are as an actress. I don't need to do that.
No.
But for me, I might to do something that takes me back to my roots and challenges me a bit. But I don't feel that I need to do that within the industry. Do you know what I mean, DK?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So doing something like a podcast is not for me to become the best podcaster. It's just, this is actually something that fits into my lifestyle, that if it means that Lincoln and I go to LA next year for a few weeks, which we might, I can still do that from here.
Yeah.
We can send stuff back to you, DK, and you can do what you do with stuff, because I'm the most untechnical person in the world. But we can always have a mic with us and do 3 podcasts or 2 or 1 or whatever. There's no absolute pressure on me.
Unplanned, unedited. Yeah, that's what it is.
Denise Welch, unplanned.
You know, but it is. We're not. We've come and sat down here, and DK said, let's get the mics on and just let's capture this now. We'd have been talking about this in the car.
No, I know. Well, he saw me. I said, what do you feel about Matt Hancock? And he said, not a lot. And I launched into this, not a lot. Why is it not bothering you? And that's when DK went, maybe we should get the mics.
Yeah, I need this to be on public record. In my defense.
Yeah.
It's just opening up a world that I just don't think that many people, would get from you. And this gives you the platform, and it's us. It's cool. It's easy. And it's just real.
Until next time.
Until next time.
Then you'll get more of Denise Welch's Juicy Crack.
There you
Over
go.
and out.
You found it. You know the title.
So guys, if there's anything that you've ever heard me talking about that you'd like to hear more of, or indeed anything you can suggest that me, DK and Lincoln can bring to the table, contact me on denisewelchpod@gmail.com. And indeed, if you've got any questions, ask away. We'd love to hear from you.